Welcome to the Hindu Daily. Our mission today is to cut through the noise and bring you the most important insights from today's newspaper. We've gone through the editorial, opinion, science, and text sections to extract the nuggets of knowledge and surprising facts that will make you well-informed quickly and efficiently.
Exactly. Our aim is to provide a curated deep dive, helping you understand not just what's happening in the news, but the deeper context of, why it matters, drawing on diverse perspectives from the day's most critical reports. Let's get started.
Okay, first up, we're kicking off with a pretty significant development from Tamil Nadu. On April 29th, 2025, Chief Minister M.K. Stalin announced a move to remove colony and, other caste-denigrating references like Palapati and Parayapati from village names and state records. This isn't merely a change in nomenclature, is it? It's about confronting a really deeply entrenched symbol of social stigma.
Absolutely. And a critical piece of history here is how the word colony actually evolved in rural Tamil Nadu. You see, while in urban settings, you might hear railway colony without any specific social meaning, right?
Right, yeah.
In many rural areas, colony became, synonymous with a lower caste neighborhood, basically a locality for ostracized individuals. Some scholars hypothesize this specific rural usage emerged from segregation practices that could maybe date as far back as the 12th century CE.
The 12th century? Wow. And what's truly striking is the ironic twist this word colony has taken. It originally evoked images of, elite colonial spaces, European colonies, or white settlements.
Exactly, spaces of power.
Yet, over centuries, it tragically transformed to signify localities where lower caste Indians were ostracized. It's quite a semantic shift. And this has had a devastating psychological impact, hasn't it? I mean, imagine having an address on your Aadhaar card that instantly triggers prejudice.
Oh, definitely. A huge impact. And it's not just colony. Historically, other terms like cherry were quite innocuous. If you look at ancient Tamil literature, say, from texts like Tolkappiyam way back in the 7th century BCE up to Silapathikaram, pictures simply referred to a settlement, a common community. But by the 20th century, it had also become a term almost exclusively associated with untouchable caste localities, really mirroring the path colony took.
So similar patterns.
Yes. And things like the Bhakti movement, maybe 6th to 9th century CE, and then Vijayanagar rule in the 14th century, are thought to have further sort of solidified this social and physical segregation. Even terms coined later with good intentions, like Hardijan by Gandhi or Adi Dravidar.
Yeah, meant to elevate.
Exactly, meant to elevate status. Ironically, they also ended up being used sometimes to, ghettoize Dalit settlements.
So this administrative move now, what's the takeaway? The British maybe inadvertently cemented some of these derogatory names in official records through their documentation.
That seems to be part of it, yes. Their detailed record-keeping sort of formalized these names. So the current government's decision, while it's not, a direct welfare scheme in the usual sense, it's a powerful, symbolic, and historic gesture.
Okay.
It signals a strong commitment to greater social integration, collective prosperity, and crucially, they've clarified that non-derogatory uses like Velacheri or Sai Baba colony in cities, they'll remain untouched.
Right, that makes sense.
And the new names for these rural localities will draw inspiration from nature flowers, maybe, or cultural figures like poets and scientists. They're consciously avoiding political leaders, which is interesting.
That is interesting. It really underscores how deeply language and official records can impact social perceptions and, dignity.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's pivot completely now. We're moving to the U.S. and this initiative called DOGE, Donald Trump's Department of Government Efficiency.
Yeah, it does. It was launched during his second term. And this ambitious program aims for, massive fiscal reform in the United States. They're targeting federal spending, the national deficit, the debt, all while trying to streamline operations and boost efficiency.
And Elon Musk was involved.
As an advisor.
Yes, brought in as an advisor. And the goal was, audacious. Cutting the number of federal agencies from over 400 down to just 99.
99? That's quite a cut.
It is. But here's the surprising paradox. Despite the, common perception of the U.S. having this huge government, if you measure it by public expenditure as a percentage of GDP, it actually operates the smallest government among the 7 major advanced economies.
Really? Smaller than, say, France or Germany?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
U.S. public expenditure is around 36.49% of GDP. France, for example, is over 56%. Yet the U.S. faces higher fiscal imbalances and government debt.
So what's going on there? If spending isn't proportionally huge, it points to the other side of the equation. Revenue. The root cause isn't necessarily massive spending, but rather lower revenue collection. The U.S. actually has the lowest tax to GDP ratio among these advanced economies, just 19.27%.
Ah, okay. So the focus on spending cuts by DOGE is only part of the picture. But they did implement quite a few reforms on the spending side, didn't they?
They did. Significant ones, according to the reports. Things like terminating leases for unused federal office spaces, canceling contracts deemed wasteful, recovering misallocated funds.
Standard efficiency drive stuff.
Right. And also a substantial federal workforce optimization. This involved hiring restrictions, reductions, voluntary buyouts, leading to roughly 260,000 employees either being laid off or retiring. Plus, they claimed deregulatory measures saved about $30.1 billion.
And they made a point about transparency, too.
Yes, DOGE prioritized that. They were regularly sharing updates on outcomes using platforms like X, dedicated portals. They even launched a payments portal for grants, so citizens could theoretically see recipient-wise federal payments. And to streamline operations, they developed something called a workforce reshaping tool. And they highlighted this metric, the Unconstitutionality Index, claiming that for every law Congress passed in 2024, bureaucracy created something like 19 rules.
19 rules per law. Wow.
That's the claim. Overall, they report estimated expenditure savings of $190 billion, translating to about $11,180 per taxpayer.
Okay, those numbers sound quite significant, but what about the bigger picture? There was this one big beautiful bill, the OBBB, an extension of DOGE, and didn't Musk publicly disagree with Trump about part of it?
That's right, yeah. There was a public disagreement over removing tax credits for electric vehicles within the OBBB. But here's the really critical challenge highlighted in the article.
Which is?
The OBBB's proposed tax cuts are projected to far exceed the spending cuts. The estimate is that it could add potentially $3.2 trillion to the U.S. national debt over the next decade.
Ah. So the savings from DIGE are dwarfed by the proposed tax cuts.
Essentially, yes, which reinforces the article's main conclusion. While DOGE-style efficiency reforms might be useful, they can only truly succeed in tackling the deficit and debt if they're coupled with serious efforts to boost government revenues. That means looking at things like corporate tax rates, closing evasion loopholes.
Got it. So efficiency alone isn't enough if the tax policy pulls in the opposite direction.
Precisely. Without tackling revenue, the long-term debt impact remains a major concern.
All right, let's transition now to the opinion section. We have a critical piece here focusing on India's electoral process. The Election Commission of India, the ECI, has initiated what's called a Special Intensive Revision, or SR, of electoral rolls. It started in Bihar with its 8 core voters and is now apparently expanding nationwide. The immediate concern raised in the article is, well, the secrecy around this. No prior public info or consultation.
Yeah, and the scale of what's happening, particularly in Bihar, is quite alarming, according to the piece. The draft list there saw 65 lakh voters removed. That averages out to about 27,000 per constituency.
27,000? That sounds like a lot. How does that compare?
Well, to give some perspective, that number actually exceeds the winning margins in 2/3 of the seats in Bihar's 2020 elections. So we're talking potentially election-altering numbers here.
Wow.
And while the ECI states reasons, deceased voters, people who've shifted, multiple enrollments, the article stresses there's a critical lack of publicly available lists showing who was deleted and why. This opacity makes any meaningful oversight or verification incredibly difficult, almost impossible.
Which naturally leads to the question, what triggered this? Why this mammoth exercise involving nearly 100 core voters across the country, seemingly out of the blue?
Exactly. The ECI's affidavit to the Supreme Court apparently cited concerns from political parties and something called an independent appraisal. But here's the catch. This appraisal itself hasn't been shared publicly.
So we don't know what it found or recommended.
Correct. And the argument is that this violates the fundamental right to information. Without that crucial evidence, the rationale behind such a widespread and impactful revision remains, well, murky.
And there's another layer to this, isn't there? Something about the 2003 Bihar rolls.
Yes. Adding to the scrutiny is the ECI's decision to exempt only those registered, way back in the 2003 Bihar electoral rolls, from needing stringent proof of citizenship. This specific detail has fueled suspicion, according to the article, that the SR might be a move to bring the National Register of Citizens through the back door.
A backdoor NRC, that's a serious allegation.
It is. And what's perhaps more concerning is the ECI's claim that critical records from 2003 The actual orders and guidelines for that revision apparently cannot be traced.
Cannot be traced. That sounds convenient, maybe.
What certainly makes it very difficult to verify their assertion that the current exercise is simply mirroring established past practices, if the past practice documents are missing.
Right. So the implications of all this opaqueness are pretty grave then. We're talking potential disenfranchisement on a large scale.
That's the core concern. And remember, election officers have broad powers, including referring people they suspect are foreign nationals to the authorities. So this lack of transparency doesn't just risk undermining electoral legitimacy. It could erode public trust in democratic institutions themselves.
It really highlights that for democracy to function, transparency in something as fundamental as who gets to vote is just non-negotiable.
Absolutely essential.
Okay, let's shift gears dramatically now. We're moving into the science section. With a fascinating new study published in Science, this research is mapping brain-wide activity patterns that trigger emotions.
Yeah, this is really fundamental stuff.
Yeah.
Because despite emotions being so core to our survival and just our daily lives, scientists are still piecing together how they actually arise in the brain. It's still a bit of a mystery.
And one of the key insights from this study is that once an emotion gets going, it often outlasts its immediate trigger, right? Like stubbing your toe, the pain is quick, but the annoyance lingers.
Exactly. Or enjoying ice cream, the pleasure extends beyond the last spoonful. Emotions often emerge spontaneously without conscious thought. And evolutionarily, that makes sense, right? It allowed early humans to react swiftly, efficiently, dodge dangers, find rewards.
So how did they study this? Something called an eye puff assay.
Yeah, it sounds a bit uncomfortable, but it's quite clever. Participants received very light air puffs, just 60 milliseconds each, directed at their eye. The researchers varied the gaps between these puffs, and they used high-speed cameras to meticulously record the blinks, but also asked participants for their subjective responses, words like unpleasant, annoying.
Okay, puffs, blinks, and feelings. What did they find in the brain activity? They looked at people with implanted electrodes.
Correct. That allowed for very precise measurement. And the breakthrough finding was this. Each air puff triggered a really fast breaking news alert signal that spread throughout the brain, like an immediate sensory input signal.
Okay, instant alert.
But then that was immediately followed by a slower, more persistent signal in specific brain circuits we know are linked to emotional responses. To probe this further, they used ketamine.
Ketamine, the anesthetic and antidepressant.
Yes, it also causes short-term dissociation. And they administered it to some participants. What's truly remarkable is what happened next.
Did it stop the blinking? Or that initial fast signal?
No, that's the fascinating part. It changed neither the initial reflexive behavior, the blink, nor that initial fast neural burst. The breaking news signal was just as strong.
Huh. So what did the ketamine do?
It affected the second part.
Yeah.
That subsequent slower brain response. It dissipated much, much faster under ketamine. And this directly impacted the subjective experience. How? Volunteers no longer described the puff as annoying. Instead, they used words like a tickling of the eyeball. And their behavior changed too. They could actually hold their eyes open between puffs, even knowing more were coming.
Wow. So the ketamine didn't block the sensation, but it stopped the annoyance from forming or sticking.
Precisely. It suggests that ketamine, perhaps by blocking some kind of integrating sensor in the brain, prevents it from forming that coherent, lingering emotional response. And interestingly, animal studies in mice showed these kinds of brain plans for emotional responses seem to be conserved across species.
So there's a clear distinction in the brain activity. Fast alert, slow emotion buildup.
That's what it looks like. Fast, almost reflexive responses likely starting in midbrain regions, the thalamus, arioaqueductal gray. Then this slower, more sustained phase involves key emotional centers, like the limbic regions and the frontal cortex. The thalamus seems to act as a crucial bridge between these phases.
And the timing of all this matters.
Hugely. The timescale shapes our emotional responses. If these signals dissipate too quickly, maybe we don't learn effectively from experiences. But conversely, if brain states become overstabilized, if the emotion lingers too long or inappropriately, that's often correlated with conditions like depression, OCD, PTSD.
I see. So understanding this timing could be key for mental health.
Absolutely. This study is really groundbreaking because it reveals what's happening in the brain during those very first seconds an emotion takes root. It paves the way for understanding how different emotions are encoded, how they evolve neurally. It's a big step.
Really fascinating stuff. Okay, let's stick with science, but move to quantum computing. Huge news here from researchers in China reported on August 8th. They found a way to rapidly and reliably create large arrays of neutral atoms using AI.
Yes, this is a critical leap forward. Building practical, scalable quantum computers is, well, one of the biggest challenges in physics and engineering right now.
So remind us quickly neutral atoms as qubits.
All right, neutral atoms, things like rubidium atoms, can be precisely trapped using optical tweezers-focused laser beams. These trapped atoms then serve as qubits, the basic units of quantum information.
And the challenge is getting lots of them perfectly arranged.
Exactly. The huge challenge has always been assembling defect-free arrays with thousands of these atoms, all positioned with extreme precision. Because when you load them into the traps, it's random, and you often have missing sites or gaps.
Right.
And the traditional methods for fixing these defects involve moving atoms one by one. It's painstakingly slow. It just doesn't scale up when you need thousands, maybe millions, of qubits for a truly powerful quantum computer.
Okay, so traditional methods are too slow, and this is where the AI comes in.
Precisely. They've developed an AI model that can rapidly calculate the optimal way to move thousands of atoms simultaneously. It basically turns this major bottleneck into a much more streamlined process.
How does it actually work? It sounds incredibly complex.
It is, but the method is ingenious. It starts with that initial, randomly loaded array. Then a sophisticated algorithm they mentioned, the Hungarian algorithm, quickly figures out the ideal pairings between the atoms you have and the target positions you want them in.
Okay, matching atoms to spots.
Right. But it does this in a way that minimizes the total distance all the atoms need to travel, and crucially, avoids collisions between them as they move.
Smart.
And to prevent problems like heating the atoms or losing them from the traps, the whole rearrangement isn't done in one big jump. It's split into about 20 smaller, controlled steps.
Gentle nudges.
Kind of. And at each tiny step, the AI generates a complex hologram using the optical tweezers. This hologram essentially creates a light landscape that moves all the atoms smoothly and simultaneously, very precisely controlling both their position and, importantly, the phase of the laser light, which is vital for quantum stuff.
And the big advantage is speed and scalability.
Massive advantage. What's truly impressive is that the total time needed to rearrange the atoms is roughly the same, whether you're dealing with 1,000 atoms or 10,000 atoms.
Wow, that doesn't seem intuitive.
It's not, but it shows how powerful the simultaneous movement approach is. It really breaks that scaling barrier.
So what are the results? How big and how fast?
The results are pretty stunning. The scientists successfully assembled two-dimensional arrays of up to 2,024 atoms, completely defect-free, in about 60 milliseconds.
60 milliseconds, that's incredibly fast.
It really is. And the AI model they used was a type called a convolutional neural network. It was trained specifically on simulated laser holograms, which allowed it to learn how to quickly generate the very accurate holograms needed to guide the atoms without losing them.
So this isn't just theoretical, they've actually built these large arrays quickly. What does this mean for the future of quantum computing? Does it solve everything?
Well, not everything. Quantum computing has many challenges, but it addresses an absolutely critical bottleneck in building the hardware. Having this rapid, precise control over thousands of qubits is a profound advancement. It brings us significantly closer to realizing the potential of large-scale, fault-tolerant quantum computers. It basically makes building them much more feasible, much faster.
A major hurdle overcome then. Exciting times for quantum. Okay, let's dive into the tech section now. 3 articles here. First up, back to infrastructure and controversy. Telangana's Kaleshwaram Lift Irrigation Project, KLIP.
Ah, yes, KLIP. Once hailed as a lifeline for the state, but now, as the article says, mired in controversies. The core issue seems to be that some of its main structures, barrages, suffered damage within just 3 years of completion.
3 years? That's not long for such a massive project, and accusations of it being a colossal waste of public money.
Exactly. To give some background, KLIP is this huge multi-purpose irrigation project on the Godavari River. It was billed as the world's largest multi-stage lift irrigation project. The aim was ambitious. Irrigate 16 lakh acres, provide lots of drinking and industrial water.
The cost ballooned?
Dramatically. From an initial estimate of around 71,000 crore, it escalated to over 1 lakh crore, and apparently it still needs more funds to be fully completed.
Okay, big project, big cost. What's the first major controversy mentioned? Something about the location.
Yes. A key point of contention was the decision to shift the project's main intake point from a place called Tumidihati to Medigada. The reason given at the time was non-availability of water at Tumidihati.
That wasn't true.
Well, a subsequent inquiry reportedly found there was actually ample water, over 200 TMT feet available at Tumidihati. This shift effectively meant that over 11,000 crore worth of work already done at the original site for a previous project version was essentially wasted.
11,000 crore wasted. Ouch. And then there are issues with the construction itself, the barrages that got damaged.
Yes, this is perhaps the most critical technical allegation, that the barrages were built on permeable foundations. Instead of solid, impermeable rock or properly treated foundations, they were built on ground that water could potentially seep through, compromising stability.
Which is obviously bad for a structure holding back massive amounts of water.
Extremely bad. And the evidence cited includes piers of the Sindilla barrage actually sinking and significant cracks developing in both the Anaram and Sindilla barrages after they started impounding water, reportedly against expert technical advice at the time.
And there's an allegation about how the decision was made, too.
Yes, that the entire project decision, including the site change, was allegedly made solely by the then chief minister without formal cabinet consent, raising questions about due process.
So an inquiry was set up.
Correct. As an election promised by the current government, a one-man judicial commission headed by Justice Pinaki Chandra Ghosh was formed. They've reportedly examined over 110 witnesses, including the former CM and ministers, and submitted their report just recently on July 31st.
Has the previous government, the BRS, responded?
Their defense is that the project did receive all necessary approvals from statutory bodies, like the Central Water Commission and the Cabinet, though the article notes the current government hasn't released those papers publicly yet. They also point out it was ratified by the Assembly through a presentation.
So what does this KLIP saga tell us? It seems like a case study in the risks of massive infrastructure projects, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The scale, the cost, the potential for things to go wrong, it really underscores the critical need for unwavering transparency, rigorous technical oversight at every stage, and robust accountability mechanisms whenever you're dealing with such huge public investments.
A cautionary tale, perhaps. Okay, next article in the text section shifts to environmental rules. India has new regulations for contaminated sites.
Yes, the Environment Protection Management of Contaminated Sites Rules 2025, notified by the Environment Ministry. And their significance really lies in providing a much-needed legal structure for tackling chemical contamination, something that was surprisingly missing before.
Missing? How are these sites handled previously?
It was quite ad hoc. The Central Pollution Control Board defines these contaminated sites, basically places where historical dumping of hazardous waste has polluted soil, groundwater, surface water, posing risks. They've identified 103 such sites across India.
103. How many have been cleaned up?
That's the shocking part. Only 7 have even begun remediation efforts. So these new rules are clearly overdue to address this backlog.
Why now? What prompted these specific rules?
They essentially fill a gap identified way back in 2010 by a capacity building program for industrial pollution management. That program noted the lack of a proper legal, institutional, and financial framework. We had inventories of sites, guidance documents on how to clean them up, but not the clear legal authority and process to make it happen.
Okay, so these rules provide that framework. What's the process they outline?
It's quite structured now. First, district administrations have to prepare half-yearly reports identifying suspected contaminated sites.
Okay, identification first.
Then the State Pollution Control Board, or another designated reference organization, conducts a preliminary assessment within 90 days. If that looks suspicious, they do a detailed survey over the next 3 months to confirm if contamination levels exceed thresholds for any of 189 listed hazardous chemicals.
Right. And if contamination is confirmed?
The site is officially declared contaminated and publicized. Access restrictions are put in place. The reference organization then specifies a detailed remediation plan how to clean it up.
And who pays?
The state board has 90 days to identify the responsible parties, whoever caused the pollution. They are legally obliged to pay for the cleanup. If they can't be found or can't pay, then the central or state government funds the remediation. And importantly, there's now criminal liability under the new Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita 2023 if the contamination leads to loss of life or damage.
Are there any exceptions to these rules?
Yes, a few key ones. Contamination from radioactive waste, from mining activities, sea-based oil pollution, and existing solid waste dump sites. These are generally governed by separate specific laws already.
Okay, that makes sense. Is there anything missing from these rules? Any potential loopholes?
One major omission highlighted is the lack of a defined timeline for completing the remediation once a site is identified and a plan is made.
So we know how it should happen, but not necessarily how quickly.
Exactly. While the rules are definitely a crucial step forward for environmental governance, providing that legal muscle, this lack of a mandatory completion timeline does raise questions. Will cleanups still drag on? How will enforcement ensure timely action? That seems to be the next big challenge.
A framework is great, but timely execution is key.
Got it. Okay, our final article today, also from the text section, takes us back to AI, but this time in the realm of pure mathematics.
Yes, and it's truly astonishing news. AI models, which, let's be honest, were pretty infamous not long ago for hallucinations and making basic arithmetic errors.
Like ChatGPT sometimes getting 2 plus 2 wrong.
Exactly. Those same types of underlying technology have now apparently reached the performance level of math's Olympiad gold medalists. Wow. Okay, remind us, the International Mathematical Olympiad, the IMO, that's the top high school competition, right? Super difficult problems.
The absolute pinnacle. It tests deep mathematical creativity and problem solving. The problems are always brand new, never seen online before. And getting a gold medal is incredibly hard. You typically need to solve roughly 5 out of the 6 extremely challenging problems.
So, an AI got a gold medal. How did that happen?
The story unfolded in a couple of stages. First, OpenAI announced that an experimental reasoning model they developed had achieved a gold medal level score on the IMO 2025 problems. They stressed it was a general-purpose model, not specifically trained just for the Olympiad.
Was that official?
There was some debate around OpenAI's timing and their self-grading. But then shortly after, Google DeepMind officially achieved a gold medal score 35 out of 42 points with their model called Gemini DeepThink. And this achievement was confirmed by the IMO president, so it's verified.
Okay, so it's real. AI can solve IMO gold level problems. How did AI get from basic arithmetic errors to this? What were the steps?
It's been a rapid evolution. We had the initial limitations of models like ChatGPT. Then came the first big advance, using AI agents. These could use tools like web searches or run Python code to perform calculations. That dramatically improved accuracy for many math tasks.
But not enough for IMO proofs.
Right, because mathematical proofs require absolute logical rigor. One tiny mistake invalidates the whole thing. The next step towards greater accuracy involved pairing these language models with formal proof systems tools like the Lean Prover, which can mathematically verify every step of a proof.
Okay, AI plus a verifier.
Exactly. Google DeepMind's Alpha Proof used this approach and got a silver medal score in IMO 2024, though it apparently took about 2 days to solve the problems.
Still impressive, but not gold speed. So what was the final breakthrough?
The latest leap seems to be these new reasoning models, like OpenAI's O3 and Google's Gemini DeepThink. They're described almost like having an internal monologue. They plan their approach, they execute steps, they can backtrack and revisit their solutions. They even seem to dither or express uncertainty before finally arriving at a verified answer.
An internal monologue. That sounds more like human thinking. How does it achieve the originality needed for IMO problems? They aren't just calculations.
It seems to be through sophisticated analogical reasoning, essentially, spotting patterns and combining ideas or ingredients from different mathematical concepts it has learned, sometimes in novel ways. And the verification part, either internal consistency checks or using that external Lean Prover, is crucial. It allows for reinforcement learning, similar to how AIs learn to master games like chess and Go by playing against themselves and verifying winning strategies.
So what are the implications if AI can ace tests of creative problem solving like the IMO?
It's huge. IMO problems are fundamentally tests of problem-solving ability, not just knowledge recall. And these AI systems are showing excellent capabilities in other aspects of research too, suggesting new approaches, finding related problems in the literature.
Can they do full research yet?
The main challenge for long-form research is maintaining that rigorous accuracy over months or years of work. That's where coupling them with formal proof systems like Lean remains absolutely key to prevent subtle errors creeping in. But the conclusion from the article is pretty exciting.
Which is?
That these models are becoming incredibly powerful collaborators with human researchers. They could greatly accelerate research and development in basically all areas that involve mathematics. The article literally says the era of the super scientist is here.
The super scientist. Human ingenuity amplified by AI reasoning. So this isn't about AI replacing mathematicians, but becoming a powerful partner.
That seems to be the most promising path forward, yes. A future where AI helps us tackle problems that were previously intractable, pushing the boundaries of discovery much faster than we could alone.
A profound shift in how science and math might be done. Fascinating. Thank you for listening. If today's episode gave you something useful, consider following us on Spotify so you're the first to hear the next one. You can give suggestions by contacting our Twitter handle given in the episode description. Apologies if you couldn't reach out earlier. The message inbox was restricted. You should be able to now. As always, we are eager to hear what our listeners want to be informed about. We wish you a great day.